This conference will
Hello
now be
guys, welcome
recorded.
to Shiv Automation Lab. So today I'm going to discuss few basics and tricky question about the REST assured API testing questions. So basically the prerequisite is you should know some REST assured concepts and the HTTP methods, how the API testing works. So if you know these things, then you will be good to understand these questions. And this question might you may face in the next interview maybe. Okay, so let's discuss one by one. So first question is like, what is the base URI in the REST assured? So base URI is the common URI, which we can say that like it is a root address of the resources. So basically you can see in the screen like we have defined the REST assured dot base URI. So REST assured is a class and which contain the base URI as the static method. So we are defining some a common URL which we can use for in the entire framework. So this is the base URI. Okay, and we can put forward slash here, and we can add whatever the values we have to add. That is, we call it as an endpoint. Okay, and this base URI is basically work with the all your HTTP method you have, the get, post, put, delete, and patch, everything. Okay, so in this format we have to just define what is the base URI and how it works, and why it is important, because once we have to define the base URI, and then at the rest of the places we just have to call the get, put, post, delete operations or the methods, and directly putting just the endpoint. Okay, so what it will do, it will just append the entire base URI like this. This get request will be appending like this only. So let me just show you here. So it will look like this only. Okay, so all time don't you don't have to put this base URI everywhere. You just have to put the endpoints. So that is all about the base URI in the REST assured. Let's move to the next question. Can you explain the request specification? So in the REST assured, so basically request specification is an interface that we use for just to get the request, post the request, put the request. For this HTTP method we use the request specification. So let's see like what it is. So it is an interface which allow us to modify the request. So it allow us to perform the all the HTTP method operations, and also it shows that we have a request specification. So it shows that how our request will look like, and in the same way we have also the response specification. So that will show us like how our response will look like. Okay, so these are the two interfaces which is available in the REST assured. So that you can explain what is the request specification. And as you can see that in the first question itself, like we have in the interface we have created the object reference HTTP request, and in that we are using that object.get method, or we can use as a post as well to pass our queries. Okay, the endpoint, and our we can say that the one proper request will be we can send it to the server and get the appropriate response from there. Okay, so that is all about the request specification. Okay, so next question is all about what will be the return type of response.json path.get JSON object. Okay, so like I have find out that when we do this get JSON object, so what it will return, it will give us the JSON object itself. Okay, so whatever the value you are providing as in a string, that will return you the exact the JSON response you are expecting from there. So that you can answer. I mean, this is a one-liner answer only, but when at the time of interview they will ask you what will be the return type of this, so you should know these things. So yeah, that's why I have picked this question as well. Okay, so the next question is like, how do you extract the value of a JSON, and how do you validate the response? So it is asking, suppose you are passing the get request method, and you are getting some response from the server. So how you are going to validate this response? Okay, so that can be done based on we have different response methods here. We have a response dot body and we have a response dot get body. Okay, and both are returning the same, only the response body. Okay, so in this what we can do is we have to just um, just use the response that we have get from the server dot get body, then we will get the entire body of the response. Okay, and then what we will do, we if we have to store it in a string format, then what we will do that like body dot as string. So the body of the response which is in the JSON format, that will get converted into the string format. Okay, and it will be stored in the body as a string. So once you get the response body in the string format, then you have a different options to uh, we can say that you can go to the path of that particular JSON, and you can just extract the value of that particular JSON. So JSON path is a query language. Okay, basically. So for the JSON we use the JSON. Uh, for JSON response, we are using the JSON path, and similarly for the XML, because you know that like whenever we request for anything from the server, it maybe you will get that the response in the XML format or maybe in the XML path. XML format. So basically, this for the XML purpose, you can use the XPath. Like we have a JSON for JSON response for, like we can use the JSON path. So how you can validate is it's a simple easy. You just have to create the object of the JSON path. Okay, and whatever the response you have get from this what you have converted in the string format, you just have to use a dot JSON path, and that JSON path evaluator variable get that value. Okay, that object, and then you can easily just pass the key, and once you pass the key, you will get the response. Whatever the value you received in the response, you will get that value in this format. Okay, so this is how you can validate your response. Okay, so basically for the JSON, you can use the JSON path, and based on that, you can validate your response. And you can also use the ham crest also. So it's for the validation purpose. So you can use the ham crest, that can also be helpful to validate your response, whatever the response you are getting. Okay, so let's move to the next question. Suppose you are requesting for something in the server, okay, and then you are getting some response. So when you send the request, at that time you are also uh, sending some headers. Okay, and that header and the request part will go to the server, and server validate that particular request, and based on that it will give you the response as well as some headers also. So you have to validate that headers, right? So what we can do is, when we get the response from the server, uh, it contains a maybe a one or more than one sets of headers. Okay, so and all these sets of header, it is in the format of key value pair. Okay, so what you have to do is, so few examples are like the response headers as like content type. So it may be the JSON format or maybe the XML format, or what is the server, that information also come in the header format, response header, and then the content encoding type, everything that basically get in the header response. So what you have to do, so I have noted some code here. So it's like when you hit the request for some specific location city, then you will get the response, and that response you are going to use response.header, and you are passing the key content type. Then that content type will return you the value of that this key value. Okay, so what it will return, it will we are asserting also here, assert dot assert equal the content type we are taking from here. So what we are expecting is application forward slash JSON. So that should be the value it will contain in the content type. So this is how you can validate the header, whatever the headers you are getting in the response. So based on that same, you have to use for the server, because these are the keys. So you have to pass the key, you will get the value accordingly based on the keys. Okay, so that you have to do. So you can validate the response of the headers in this way. Okay, you just have to I am explaining in a short manner. You just have to go through these answers, as well as if you find something more detail in that questions, so you can add I mean answer in your ways also. There is no a strict rule for answering anything like the way I am teaching, but you can answer in any ways. Okay, I'm just giving you some content and some questions that can help you while you are giving the interview in the APIs. Okay, so let's move to the next question, like what is the difference between header and headers? So this is again a tricky question, and sometimes it's easy also, but sometimes we may get confused. So as we see that, like when we get the response and we try to get the header, so when we're requesting for header, so it will, we are passing only one key. So based on that one key, it will return us the value, right? One value. But so here also we are, what we are getting the single header value, okay, with the key and the value. So it takes the string value and it returns the string value. But in the headers, what we can do is we have to pass multiple keys. Okay, if we pass multiple keys, then based on that multiple keys, we will get that the multiple values. So because in the headers response, we will have a multiple headers key value pairs, right? So that's a difference between the header and headers. Okay, and it will return us, headers will return us the response of headers, and in header it will return only the string value. So it is the same question here, what is the difference between the response dot header and the response dot header method? So the way I have explained you both the things, you just have to differentiate between the two, what the header will return and what headers will be returning, and how both the things are working. Okay, so this is also a very important question. You should know when you are working on the API testing, because most of the time we are dealing with the JSON object. So when they ask us like what is the JSON object, so you have to know that like what is the JSON object and how it works. So JSON object class represents an immutable JSON object. So it is an unordered collection of zero or more key value pairs. Okay, so when we are writing the JSON body, okay, like this, my object equals in double quotes name colon in double quotes demo. So this is the one value. Okay, and if we want to separate it with another value, we can use the comma here, and then this is the second value, and this is the third value. Okay, so this is what is in the definition. It's saying that JSON object class represent an immutable JSON object value, which is an unordered collection of zero or more key value pairs. Okay, so basically it internally JSON object extend the hash map class and implement the map interfaces, and it uses the curly braces. JSON objects are surrounded with the curly braces, and they are with the key value pair. So one key value, we can say that the one set of value, one set of data, and another key value pair is another set of data. So each key value pair is separated by comma, and key and values are separated by colon. So this is a key, name is your key, and demo is your value, and these are separated with the colon. So this is the JSON object is all about. Okay, so next question is like what is the response dot path? So, and you can pass any string that you want to. So basically, what exactly the response dot path is, this will return us the string value. As we can see that like we are passing the string value, and this response path will definitely return us the string value, and it is useful for getting the values from the response body. Okay, whatever the response we are getting, we are trying to fetch something from there, right? So we are just describing that the whatever the value we are getting, okay, from the response body, that response body can be of type XML path or the JSON path, right? So that is the thing, it is defined here. So if no content type is defined, then rest assured will try to look at the default parser, and if defined, rest assured dot default parser. So we can use JSON path as well for validating the response. So we can say that like a response dot path is basically we are not using so much, but I mean it is based on the choice, we can say that. But for the validation purpose, whatever the response we are getting, we mostly go with the ham crash or maybe the JSON path to validate the response. So but you should know this, what is the response dot path and what will be the alternative of it. Okay, so yeah. And this is also what is the response, whatever the response you are getting, you have to convert it in a string format. So response.body.as string. So what you can do is get the body as a string based on what response we got. So basically whatever the response will get, that it is in the JSON format, so that body needs to be in this string format. So that's why we are writing as string. Okay, and same thing that we are using for as string, that's the same way we have like response.body.prettyprint. So in the as string format, like what we whatever the response we will get, that the body of it, when you do dot as string, it will show you the same string value. I mean it is not formatted exact way the JSON look like. So for that purpose, we most of the time use whatever the response we get, we use pretty print. So pretty print the response body possible, and it return as a string, mainly useful for the debug purpose. Okay, when writing the test. So pretty print printing is possible for content type JSON, XML, and HTML. So this pretty print works for the response that we are getting in the JSON, XML, and the HTML format only. So and as string will be the common for all the things. Okay, so sometimes they ask you the differentiation between them. So differentiation is a very short of both the things, like the what other types of content types actually the pretty print supports, and what not supported by the as string. Okay, so and also you can find more on this, no problem on this. Okay, so what is the rest assured dot given dot query param? Okay, so it is asking for the query param. So basically you might be knowing that like what is a query param. So when you have to specify a multi-value query parameter that will be sent in the request, suppose you have to send the request, okay, and you have to pass the multiple multi-value query parameters. So what you will do that in the given section, like you are using the query param, and this car value you are assigning the list of values, because car can have multiple different cars, right? So what it will do, this will set the parameter as car is equals to Volvo and the car equals to Saab. Okay, so this method is basically sets the query parameters. So yeah, that is all the use of query parameters. Okay, so here there is one more difference between the, what is the difference between request.get and this URL you are passing, and the request.request. Inside that you are specifying the method and the all customers. So basically both will work same only. There is nothing much differences, but based on the format or the style we are using, like if we are using in the format of given when and then we mostly go with this format, request.get and the all the API section. Okay, and in this request method dot get, this basically we use we can say that for the request specification things. Then we, so for defining or getting the value from the server on passing or hitting the a particular endpoint, there is a two different ways. You can go with the BDD approach, or you can just create the request specification interface object, and based on that you can call RestAssured.given, and then you can use this type of way of calling the get method or the post method or anything. Okay, so it's based on the requirement and the choice of a one particular tester, and that can be done. There's no anything fixed, we can say that. Okay. Okay, so this is the tricky question also. Can 200 status code be a response of a post? As we all know that, like for the post, whenever we do post request, we always get that, we can say that the 201 status code. But here it is asking like, can 200 status code be the response of a post? So yes, that is possible actually. I mean, I have find out some finding on the internet, and based on that, it is possible. I have also given you the link here. You can use this link and just refer to the documentation. Um, when we do post request, we will get that the 200 as an status. But what exactly it is defining, that you should return a response body of that post entity. Okay, post body for entity to describe or containing the result of action. So that should be the response. Like if you are getting the 200 as the status code, then you should getting the particular, we can say that the value. Okay, so you can comment me if you have some real-time example of it. Okay, and let's move to the last question. What is the path parameter and what is the query parameter? So as you can see that here, when we are requesting for get and getting the all employees, and when we put this employee ID, so this is the example of, we can say that uh, it is based on, like we are passing the path, right? We are passing here the path, like the employee ID may be 1 2 or anything. But and this is useful for to get the particular list of a particular employee. But what is the query parameter? A query parameter is something when we have to filter out something, like we are getting all the employees, but we need all the employees of designation SSA. So that time what we can do, we can use with the query parameter. And path parameter will be useful for getting the records in one format, like we need an employee of particular employee ID. So that time we go with the path parameters. Okay, so that's all. Like these all questions I have noted down. I have tried to answer or discuss with you, like what should be the answer of this. I have given you the short example of it. You can add or delete based on your requirement, but these questions are very useful while interviewing in the API testing. Okay, so I hope you guys find something useful. Do let me know in the comment section. Then I can add more question on the API testing. Okay, so bye.